Hello, and welcome to a special bonus episode of I Like to Look for Rainbows. In it, you'll hear virtually nothing from me, and in its place, you'll hear from a collection of queer Mormons from all over the rainbow about topics of concern to the queer Mormon community, like the first anniversary of the Pulse shooting in Orlando, our sometimes fraught relationship with allies, and other topics. So, without further ado, I give you the first edition of what I'm calling Queer Mormon Kiki. Let's look for rainbows together, y'all.
My name is Geraldine. My pronouns are she and hers, and I am here as an ally. I hate that we're starting off with the ally. Seems to be a theme.
That's it, I'm out.
But I'm here to record, and there we go.
Okay.
So I pulled together a whole bunch of my friends to have a conversation about whatever y'all want to talk about. So there you go.
My name is Jack, and I'm a bisexual trans man.
My name is Jude. I'm also a bisexual trans man, but non-binary, so.
I'm Chris. I'm transgender and asexual, and my pronouns are they, them.
I'm Shelby. I also go by Shane. I'm non-binary, so I go by she, him, her, and him.
I'm Beth, and I'm transsexual and genderqueer.
My name is Dax. My pronouns are she and her. I'm here as an ally.
My name's Kai. My pronouns are they and them, and I'm pan/demisexual and non-binary.
I'm Ellen. Pronouns she, her, and I'm a lesbian woman. I'm going by Will. They, them pronouns. I am genderqueer, I guess, so somewhere around there. Screwed up.
Alright, and I'm Wes. Suffice it to say, I'm trans, and for right now I'm going by he, him.
Awesome. So we talked about, originally talking about the anniversary of the shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. And I know that Chris, for instance, has a close tie to Orlando, and they wanted to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so I spent my teenage years in Orlando. I moved there when I was 14. My parents specifically moved us to Orlando so we could go to Disney World every weekend. And we did. And then I lived there until my senior year. And actually, Orlando is where I first met a gay person and first kind of got introduced to the LGBT community. I was very sheltered, very innocent little Mormon girl, had no idea like what anything stood for or what anything was, but my friend, he took me under his wing and kind of helped me to make friends, even though I was really dumb and really innocent. But when I heard about the shooting, it was really hard because I have a lot of LGBT friends there, and I was very, very afraid that I was going to see one of their names pop up on the list. So I was really grateful when I didn't, but it's still been a difficult year. I've got friends down there who have struggled a lot with it since, and some who are getting the support they need. One of my friends is in the Orlando gay chorus, and they've gone all around the world singing and presenting to just anybody who will listen, and they've had a really good reception since the shooting, but at the same time I know that they all wish that they didn't have a reason for that reception.
Yeah. So where was everyone when you heard about the Pulse shooting? Like, what do you remember about that moment when you heard about it?
I woke up and just saw one of my friends on Facebook said I'm safe, and I was like, uh-oh, something happened at Disney World, because that's the main thing you think about when you think of Florida and when things happen down there. And so I kind of looked around a little bit and saw that it was a pulse, and just kind of, honestly, I wrote it off. I didn't really think about how bad it was or who had been affected until later that day when things kept popping up, and it got worse and worse and worse. And then I really looked into it and realized how bad it was.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything to add?
I was in my apartment with 2 other queer women who were dating. We did a Sorkin Saturday, so we watched something with Aaron Sorkin, and I got the alert on my phone. It was just like 12:30 maybe Mountain Standard Time, and I was like, oh, there's a shooting, another mass shooting. Was kind of what I was thinking at first. It was just like, here we go again.
Yeah.
Happened again, because all the same loopholes. And then the alerts just kept coming, and the death rate kept growing. And I studied politics, one of the other women studied politics, and we were just on our laptops trying to figure out what in the heck happened and why. And in the days following, especially with our political thinking, once things started getting blamed on Islamic terrorism, I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. This guy, it came out the guy had no ties to the Islamic State or anything ridiculous. He was a lone wolf in his own right, and the right kept saying, oh, it's a tragedy because of Islamic terror. And I'm just like, you just, no, Marco Rubio, no, don't try to go there. It's not going to fly with us, because it's just another racist jerk, our community, to try and pawn it off onto something that's completely different. I don't know. For us, it was really shocking to watch the aftermath.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the harder parts of it. Like, just how people just kind of ignored it and just wrote it off. I think that was really frustrating.
Yeah.
For me, I was with a family that I was really close to at the time, and I remember seeing it on the TV and just saying there was a shooting at a gay nightclub, and the family's response was like, oh, that's sad. And then it was just like silent in regards to it. And this is a family that was so like, oh my gosh, there's this like police shooting going on, and it would be like this hour-long conversation, or like, oh my gosh, there's this rioting going on, and huge conversation. And just as it surrounded the LGBTQ community and this hate crime that was done, it suddenly didn't matter, or was kind of brushed under the rug as, oh, this is a sad thing, but we're going to forget about it. And it really just showed to me how apparent it was how much homophobia we still have in our friend circles, and how much people think they're empathizing and being kind, yet how there's kind of just this, like, if we're silent, we're not actually condoning the behavior, compared to people, like, really caring, like they care about some other things.
I know I really wanted to talk about it with my family, especially my Florida, like my mom and dad, because they lived in Florida with us. But I didn't even bring it up because I knew if I did, that they would just say something like, well, if they'd been home, or if they hadn't been out where they were supposed to be, type of a thing. And I just didn't even want to deal with that.
I don't remember the moment that I found out, but I remember the feeling that there was nobody in my real life that I could tell that would understand what it meant.
I remember it was Sunday, and I think I was sitting in the kitchen on my laptop on Tumblr in my church clothes and stuff, and I'm not out to any of my roommates, and so I saw people on Tumblr were posting a lot about it and what happened, and slowly, I just was reading more and more, and like others have said, like the death count just kept going, and it was the worst thing. I just remember like breaking down sobbing in my kitchen, and I couldn't tell my roommates what was wrong, because I go to BYU, so I'm not going to out myself there. But it was terrible. So I remember a roommate who is an ally, she thought I was an ally too, which is fine. So we both wore black to church, and there was like this couple that was at church, a boyfriend and girlfriend. The boyfriend was wearing a rainbow tie, and the girlfriend was in black. And they saw my roommate's black clothes, and they're like, "Are you dressed for Pulse too?" And we said yes, and we just kind of cried together. And one of our bishopric members actually brought it up too, and we had a moment of silence, and that was really nice. I didn't expect that to happen, but yeah, I couldn't stay for the rest of the church day because I was just so shaken up. So it was terrible.
I definitely felt a lot of casual indifference. I mean, not me personally. I felt from our community, especially because I work in a very conservative workplace, to put it lightly. And I interact with a lot of people daily. And it was just a lot of times people come in and they want to gossip, and there's just nothing. There's just casual indifference. And you have your coworkers who I'm out to, for the most part. I'm kind of out to. And they just write it off as, oh, it's just another sad thing. And again, it brings up this whole idea of, well, if you hadn't been living in sin or whatever, then you wouldn't have been there. Or, well, maybe if you had had a gun, it would have been fine. And I keep, and nobody's saying the fact that, man, there are so many people dead, and it's because of who they love, and it's because someone hated someone so much for who they love, and not the fact that people didn't care that it was just mass slaughter, while these people are supposed to be safe and loving and dancing with the people that they care most about in the world, where they don't have to hide. That it shakes you. So I worked as an EMT for a while, and I never worked on an ambulance, but I heard accounts from first responders that just said their phones just kept ringing. Their phones just kept ringing, and I in my experience, that's similar to that. I just can't even imagine. Because I had to, we called family members. Yeah, Johnny got a broken leg skiing on a run he shouldn't have been on. And those conversations were hard to have, and hard to be around. And I heard that, and it just, there's nothing that made it more real to me than that moment when I heard and read that.
I was visiting my parents, who, I'm still trying to work everything out with them between, where I'm going to go in life, who am I going to be, I haven't transitioned yet or anything. So, and they just love me, and they're so concerned about me, and for all of us, this was scary, because my mom has always told me, maybe you should rethink some of your life choices. You don't know what's out there. And I like to think of myself who has a lot of control over my own life, but, it's events like this that tell you that, you can have as much control as you can have in your life, but someone else has control over theirs too. It was hard for me because it was a reminder that everyone's mortal, and you can love yourself as much as you want, but there will be people who don't love you, who don't want to love you, and who will do the exact opposite. And this was hard for me on another level, because I knew that this was another reason for my parents to be afraid for me. That every single time something like this happens, my struggle, my efforts to help them understand that by being myself and being the person who I love, that's a good thing for my life. But this is more reason for them to believe that it's not a good thing. And so it seems to undo so much of what I have tried to do.
I have two things, if that's okay. The first is that I am a parent. My son is 9, and I have considered a lot what will happen with him if he comes out in the future as gay or as bi or trans. And yeah, this, as a parent, listening to the accounts of the parents, there was one mom who got a text from her son that said, "I love you, Mom," and that was the last thing she got from her son. And reading that was just, I can't even imagine. And I hope that by the time my son is old enough to go clubbing, that it will be safe for him to do so. And I also just wanted to remind people that this was an act of violence against the LGBT community, absolutely, but it was also an act of violence against the Latino community. It was Latino night. I'm not Latino. My father is a Mexican immigrant. So I have 2 siblings who are half Mexican. And just thinking that if we still lived in Florida, like, it could have been one of them, because that's their heritage, that's who they are. And I know that they both connect very strongly with their Mexican heritage. And so I don't know how somebody can hate so much that they'd be willing to destroy somebody or to destroy their whole family. So you're not just destroying one person, you're destroying their whole family, all their friends. Like, I just don't understand.
People hate so much. How can people just thrive off of hate? It just doesn't make sense to me.
I think too, for a lot of America, they think, it ended with that weekend and it's been a year later and we're getting over it. But it's still constantly in the back of our minds. I mean, even Pride weekend, we went out Saturday night, and I remember standing there and just looking around and realizing that it was a completely full room, and if anything happened, there was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to run to. That was it. And just, it ruined stuff that night. I mean, we couldn't even stay. We were there for like 30 minutes, and it just was this. If we stay here and if something happens, that's it. That's it.
Or just even like on the parade route, they had a bunch of protesters.
Yeah.
And any one of them could have just pulled out a gun. Like, there was no security, there was nothing, and it just would have been over. Like, when you first walked into the Pride Festival part, they did search your bag, but they never like did a body search or anything, so somebody could easily brought something in.
Is that a fear that you had before the Pulse shooting?
I have never had that fear with my son around, because he went with me. I've thought about it before in passing. I've thought about it like at Comic-Con. They don't search very well. But I've never seen something happen and then thought, oh, this could actually happen here. It has never been real for me. It's always been just an imaginary thought. But after Pulse, it became a very real possibility.
I think it adds another burden because, I don't go to a whole lot of LGBTQ events or anything, but the stuff that I do go to, now I have to, think twice, not about going, because I still want to be there, I still want to meet people who, are in the same community as I am, but I have to think about when was the last time I told my parents that I love them, or, is everything okay if I don't come back, and stuff like that. That's a burden that I think is unfair, because I'm just going to go out and do me. I'm not going out to, cause anyone trouble. I'm going to go be with the people who, I want to be friends with. And I don't see what's the big deal for some people, but, Pulse just shows that there are people who have a beef with people going to a place that they can call their hangout spot, where they can be with people like them. It took so many lives to prove that point, and someone else, you don't know who, because I'm sure no one at Pulse that day thought that this was a possibility for them. And now I can't say that it's probably not a possibility for me either, because it could happen.
I don't know about other people, but something that I don't talk about because it's just like the air I breathe is just the reality that I want to feel prepared for any violence that I will face. Not like in terms of like combat skills, but more just like the emotional trauma.
Yeah, I felt that at Pride, especially. The protesters was like, whatever. For me, I don't care. But then when I went again with my son, and he was like, why do they have signs that say we're going to hell? You know, I had to start like thinking not just for my emotional combat skills, but I had to work on his emotional combat skills as well. Like, is somebody going to target him and scream at him because he's carrying a sign that says "I love my transgender mom"? Like, so yeah, we've had that talk.
I think it's hard not to think about what could happen, like, and not to keep coming back to that over and over.
Especially since I started changing my appearance more to be how I want to be. Sometimes I start realizing, like, just little things, being on the train, because people get attacked all the time. Just on the front runner, I'm just thinking, what if someone decided they didn't want me there anymore? Like, it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah. What ways, so today on Facebook, or maybe it was yesterday, Frankie Lee, I'll get permission to use their name, said that in the last year they've never gone to a nightclub.
Yeah.
Where that was part of what they'd done previous. However lives changed, we talk about the fear.
I second that. I mean, like I said last weekend, it's Pride weekend. Like, we're all excited. You know, like, we went out to a nightclub, like, partied up with a big group of friends. And I remember one moment, I was just having fun. And I turned around and looked at, you know, my girlfriend who was behind me. And I looked at all the people behind her. And I was like, we can't stay in here. Like, if something happens, that's it. Like, that's it. There's nowhere to run. We can't. It's going to take us 10 minutes to get to the door that's 40 feet away because there's so many dang people in here. And that's it. Everybody in here's dying. And it suddenly took this thing that was supposed to be this celebration of who I am, and it just destroyed it. And thinking about all the possibilities, and then remembering this did happen. Like, this isn't something that I'm making up in my head right now. Like, this did happen. People did die. Almost 100 people were injured / killed. Like, we need to go. And we ended up leaving, and it was painful. Like, realizing that is something that will always be in the back of my mind from now on.
Well, these are choices we always have to make. Choices between safety and our authentic joy. Like, just being able to live our lives and enjoy ourselves. Even in small interactions, you know, even where there isn't threat of violence, we're always making those compromises.
I think the scariest part for me was that I went to Pride too, and it was great. But yeah, what my friend and I, we were at like the Sun Trap, which is, you know, a known gay bar and stuff like that. And I didn't even think about it. I thought about Pulse earlier that day, but when we were there, when we were partying, having fun and stuff, it wasn't even on my mind. So something totally could have happened, and I would have been blindsided just like those people at Pulse. And that's the scariest thing to me, is that I was in a known gay bar with my friend, and I didn't even think about it. So I just think about all the other people like me and the people at Pulse who just had no idea, and it just makes everything so much scarier.
I think another hard thing was that, like, I think a lot of people don't recognize how much the LGBTQ community is very family, because we all lose family members. I've never met someone who's in our community who's not lost a family member, a friend, has not lost someone because of their sexuality, right? And so it's really hard to recognize that, like, hey, I could lose my people. Because chances are I'm not going to be in a club, okay? But, like, the people that I love and the people that I would do anything for, they might be there. And someone else who I care about, their person might be there. And the people that we rely so much on, who are our family, those are the people that are dying.
And if it's not a nightclub, it's those protesters. We don't think about that. We don't think about the fact that for some kid walking by who's closeted, who happened to be walking by with his parents that day, seeing those signs.
Yeah.
We don't really think about the fact that suicide rates skyrocketed after Pulse here in Utah. And it's because people were silent or said horrible things about how the LGBTQ community deserved that.
Yeah, it is, and that's hard to come to grips with. It's like I've only, I would say I've only, entered, just within the last, year, maybe year and a half, what I feel, what I can call community and everything like that. And just realizing also that how many non-violent people are in this community in terms of, we hear about this stuff, we know it exists, but I don't hear anyone saying that violence needs to be met with violence. It's just the constant, the same song. It's, please accept us, please love us. And yet, despite that song being sung as much as we sing it, this stuff happens. And like you said, eventually it's not going to be a nightclub. And unfortunately, I think all of us know that that's not going to be the last time it happens. And we don't know when it's going to happen. And we don't know if it's going to be the people we love. There's just a lot we don't know. That's why I think it's just so unfair. And not that life should be completely fair or anything, but that's not something anyone who's just a normal person should just have to live with, is the threat of, some random person who has been boiling up that you didn't do anything to, but apparently to them, your very existence did do something.
That's one thing that consistently impresses me about the LGBT community, is that never has anyone responded with, let's get back at them, or I hate heterosexual cisgender people. It's always just, it's sad, we're upset, we're angry, but we're still just asking for you to accept us as people, because that's all we are. We're just people, and all we want is acceptance and love. And we never return, well, at least I've never seen the LGBT community return that kind of hatred, that kind of violence in kind. It's always just, we'll take it, and we love you, please just love us too.
I'm personally coming into a different stage in my, perspective, and I'm beginning to understand the abuse that I've received from other people differently than I have before, and becoming less comfortable for myself with always needing to bear the burden of nonviolence. And I say that because I also bear the burden of state and social violence. And so I get to be the bearer of both the original abuse and the responsibility to respond kindly. And while I think under normal circumstances, like outside of oppression, it's valuable to consider other people's perspectives, to be patient, to revert to a discussion that's mutual, but where there's already a power imbalance with cis or het people, that power imbalance has to be corrected in some way in order for the conversation to be had well.
When after everything I wrote on my Facebook, I'm here, I'm queer, and I am not going away. None of us are going away. Please just stop killing us. But you're absolutely right. There does need to be more of a conversation, and it's frustrating that I feel like when LGBT, when our community tries to bring it up, we're just silenced or ignored or yelled at. So,
well,
yeah.
Told that we're being rude.
Or,
Yeah.
or that it's little things like we're special snowflakes.
Yeah.
When the thing is that we're not special for having to stick up for ourselves, or to when we're upset about something happens to you, you get upset. That doesn't make you special. And the fact that we're called snowflakes because people think we're delicate, well, I mean, yeah, that's easy for anyone to say when you're exploiting the fact that you don't hear ever about someone from the LGBTQ community going to hunting down anybody who's not LGBTQ because, of some vendetta that, you just don't hear about that. And I think that's probably for the very logical reason that it doesn't happen. Maybe something personal happened to them and everything, but I've never heard of warriors for the LGBTQ, going out.
We're starting them right now.
I'm in.
Yeah.
And even if
got my lightsabers.
You know what, I think if something like that did end up happening in the LGBTQ community, we wouldn't use weapons or anything. We would somehow turn it into some fun but vigilant thing.
We throw
for
cupcakes at people.
Exactly. Like that's the extent
Y'all
of
would use memes.
yeah. We would
Rainbow poison cupcakes.
exactly like we had to make everything rainbow.
Mine would personally be the trans colors, but if you want to do rainbow, that's fine.
It's whatever you feel good with. But there it is again. We're affirming here. We're always aiming to be that, and and so being called a special snowflake, being called whiny or weak in a lot of places. There are people who just look down on us for things that logically we just shouldn't be looked down on for. It takes a lot of restraint for us to live the life that we live, having the burdens that we have, and to not constantly be unhappy or upset about this. We have to find reasons to live our life and to love ourselves, because otherwise, the overwhelming voice, despite how many people are out there, how many of us there are, we're still told that we're whiny or unwanted, that our voice is not appreciated.
So I posted a picture yesterday on Instagram because I took an awesome selfie of me. Oh, so good. Anyway, I just used the this is what trans looks like hashtag. And somebody popped in and said, transgender is a mental illness. And I was like, who are you? And how do you have time to just go comment on random people's selfie? What is this? And so I had a whole bunch of friends who came on and were trying to explain, no, it's not, and here's why. And I was just like, look, dude, I'm not going to convince you. You're not going to convince me. I tried to convince myself for 28 years that I was not transgender. It didn't work. If I can't do it, you can't do it. So just shoot. Anyway, but yeah, those little microaggressions are so frustrating.
To go along with what you were saying, Les, and of course Chris, I just think that screw snowflakes. We're some of the strongest people. Seriously, for all the shit that we put up with, pardon my foul language, but I mean it. We do it. I know, I'm already there.
We're swear friendly.
Just the fact that we put up with so much, and we're still here. We put up with people, calling us slurs, or misgendering us, or just saying that...
pronouns.
Exactly. Calling what we're going through mental illness, just belittling all of our struggles and just our beings for who we love and who we want to be and are. And I just think that for us mourning the loss of our brethren and sisters at Pulse, and people saying, "Oh, shut up," they don't ever say that, I don't think, but basically,
just move on.
Yeah, just move on. It's been a year. Why are you still crying about it? No, you do not get to say that to us. We will mourn.
Well, I don't get why we don't get to mourn, and bad example, but Sandy Hook is memorialized every year, but and rightly so, but nobody tells the Sandy Hook victims' families to move on or to get over it. So I don't understand why we are supposed to just move on and get over it.
So it sounds to me, and this is going back to something Jack said a lot earlier, was that this was a new fear, but and that you already had experienced a lot of other fears as far as being part of the community. So this is just like one more reminder that you're not safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of wanted to like, this is not therapy, but I thought it was
Do you have your
interesting.
license?
No, I do not. I have 0 licenses, but anyway.
I'm
Again?
So this was so it struck me like that you're in this sort of constant state of fear. Is that accurate?
Yes. Underlying all the time.
On your guard constantly.
I think that's
Always
a really good way of putting it.
Yeah. It's always looking at like the doorways and stuff, always casing somewhere to make sure you're safe or not. It's just a constant.
And you had never
state.
maybe thought before the shooting that a nightclub that was LGBTQ friendly would be a place where you would feel unsafe.
No.
Yeah.
It used to be like a safe place, a place to go, and now it's not able to be anymore. So we lose another place where we can go to feel safe, feel welcome.
So you're feeling your safe place is shrinking.
Yes.
Yeah. Something like this kind of makes me feel. I think I've always been a little naive and very trusting. Some have even called me gullible, but yeah,
They are.
Hey. But yeah. I mean, just it's kind of a wake up call for me. Like, oh yeah, nowhere really is safe. If a safe place, like a supposed safe place, like Pulse, isn't safe, then where is?
And I sort of feel like the safe places are shrinking. So I mean, I don't go clubbing because it's too loud, and I'm old and don't do that. But there's one place gone, right? I can't go to movie theaters at night anymore because there was that shooting at Batman. I am terrified of sending my son to school because he's a year younger than the Sandy Hook victims. Like, there are no more safe places, and what am I supposed to do? Just lock myself in the house all the time? That doesn't work. My cats get mad at me if I'm there all the time.
And you start realizing, like, even the idea that people could get you there, they really
Yeah.
want to.
They could blow my house up. It'd be way easy. Nobody knows where I live, right?
I mean, this comes being trans. This comes after the constant negative discussion of bathrooms and where do trans people fit into society now that we're talking about where they can do their business when nature calls. I mean, the thing is that I don't know. Just for me as a trans person, kick us out of bathrooms. That's like a thing people want to talk about. Or put us in bathrooms where we are generally not safe.
Right.
So, it's not just taking away safe places, but taking away normal places and making them unsafe.
Yeah.
Increasing the amount of unsafeness.
I know for bathroom. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Don't mean to talk over you. But for bathrooms, like, I look on first glance, I look male. I have short hair. I have kind of just a big body. And I read as male on first glance. And I used to get the scariest looks when I would walk into the women's bathroom. So after I had my son, I was super relieved because I had, like, this little tiny baby shield that I could take in and be like, look, I belong here. I'm a mom. I have a kid. This is my bathroom, right? And now Toby's old enough to go to the men's restroom on his own. And I'm like, maybe I'll just hold it till I get home because I don't know where to go. What do I do? It's hopefully I can find a family bathroom, but that's not always the case.
Do we want to talk about the bathrooms?
I'm so sick of bathrooms.
I know, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I generally try to avoid that subject, but everyone had a very visceral reaction to the word
we're all
bathrooms.
tired of it.
Yeah.
So you're feeling these places where you feel safe shrinking. What are some things that people can do to make their places more safe?
No guns allowed.
No guns allowed. That's a good one.
Sit down, shut up, and just listen.
Yeah.
For real.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're talking about, like, places that,
They'll come back.
like, what places do you want to be safe? and you don't have to like be super specific. Maybe I don't know. Like I'm just trying to throw a topic out there. So what could people do to make you feel safer?
So, speaking for my family, they suck about talking about LGBT stuff super negatively, and just in casual passing, or like we'll be talking in the living room together, and it's all like really negative. Then you stop. Like, just stop. Don't. You never know who's listening. You never know who's in the closet. Go ahead, Kai.
Oh, you're still talking.
No, I'm done. That's I forgot what I was
just
gonna say.
didn't necessarily like I wanted to say something.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I remember.
I'm sorry.
You don't remember?
I ruined it.
Yeah,
Can I say something while you're thinking about it?
totally.
No,
And maybe I'll help you remember. So I was visiting my parents in out of the country where they were living for a while, and this is when the bathroom thing. Sorry to go back to that, but it won't be long. The whole trans bathroom thing was really big, and I remember my parents saying, and I hadn't come out to them by then, and they're just like, "Oh, being trans is a disorder."
Yeah.
Kind of like that. And I just like, well, I was never going to come out to you anyway, but I'm definitely not now. And it was awful. I didn't want to see them the rest of the day because they, little did they know that they thought their kid was a disorder.
Yeah.
What do you people
And so I wish that, that I could be, I could feel safe and comfortable around my family, but, and that they would just, sit and listen.
Hi, Shelby.
But yeah, I don't know if that helped jog your memory.
So I just wrote it down so I remember. So basically, one of the other thing is being able to defend yourself without anybody claiming you being toxic or telling them, oh, you just need to respect opinions or this, that. Because when opinions are harmful like that, I don't really want to respect it because that hurts people.
Yeah.
That's not.
You shouldn't have to respect hurtful opinions.
Yeah. You don't want people to be able to get away with just telling you
That's your
that
opinion,
you're
but
broken.
it's wrong.
Yeah.
I wish people would take into consideration that when I have these difficult conversations with people who say their harmful opinions, even just sometimes as a misstep, I take that with me into the future very strongly into the next several hours, probably the next several days, but also I've been out for almost 10 years now, and I am still feeling pain. I'm still feeling pain from things that happened to me 10 years ago. So, even if those people have become better, it's painful to me to know that that's what they believed about me.
Well, and you're always worried, like, can you actually trust that person? Because that one time they believed that you were crazy. So what if that comes back? It's
Right.
you never fully trust somebody that has done that.
In terms of steps or ways that places can become safer for LGBT people, is to I don't know how I, as being a member of the community, can say this more than I do, but to establish at least the level of trust to know that if you take the time to because we can't do that for you.
Yeah.
We can't disarm you of things like microaggressions and things like that. If you just take the time to do that, if you trust us, we will not let you down. We will accept you. We will try to be loving and affirming towards you too, because generally that's just what we're asking for.
Yeah.
Is for you to start trusting us when we say that this is who we are. This is what we love. And when it comes down to it, this is what we're constantly about and what we're telling each other. Hey, you're loved. You deserve to be here. You can be you. And so like I was saying before, microaggressions, that's people seem to get so up in arms about you can't make me stop saying microaggressions. They're little. They're just little kind of things. I was at work and there were a bunch of high schoolers that came in, and one of them made the very unfunny joke, the "did you just assume my gender" joke, and that's just something that like I'm a normal person to them, but and they don't know how that bugs me. That's a microaggression. That's something that they didn't need to say that. They didn't need to make that joke, but apparently everyone else in their life thinks that that's okay. But it starts with like microaggressions feeding the belief that you can, in small ways, bug people who have been bugged, and then even worse, been attacked in nightclubs, or attacked in bathrooms, or or who have to wonder, hey, is it ever okay for me to be out? Even if I'm working. So.
Well, I often wonder. Oh, sorry. Go. No.
It was just a little thing. The microaggressions are basically just bully tactics to keep us quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I often wonder, like, at least with my family, it's almost like they're using them to try to fix me or convert me back to being a woman. And guess what? It's not going to happen. It drives me crazy because, I mean, I think I would know what I am and who I am, having lived in this body for 30 years. Mm-hmm. Like, why would I come out as transgender for funsies? Like, I've gotten this before where, well, it's you're a trans-trender, right? You're not really transgender, you just are because it's popular right now.
Oh my god.
Like, oh, sorry,
oh, losing it then.
Well, I'm not to the point where I'm losing it yet because my mom is really scary, but...
oh, no, I got you on that one.
Well, you come over to my house. But, yeah, it drives me crazy because it wasn't trendy 27 years ago when I first realized that I was a male in a woman's body. Like, it wasn't trendy then, it wasn't trendy 10 years ago. It's still, I could be killed for who I am, so I don't think I'm really a transgender. Thank you. Like, my mom's always like, just get over it. And I'm like, yeah, no problem, Mom. I'll just get over everything that makes me who I am. What? Sorry.
Who wants to have dysphoria?
Right. Yeah, I know, exactly. This isn't fun. This isn't, like, being LGBT isn't a game. It's not fun to play. It's not popular. It's not a choice. It's just who you are.
But y'all have the best parade.
That's true. We do.
Despite having the best parade,
there were no horses in our parade, though, so that was a problem.
Yes, there were.
I think the idea of the transgender is even just problematic in the regards of, I think people who are on the right, side of politics or whatever, will think that exists due to the fact that trans people are just widely accepted in more liberal communities or whatnot. But, we have to, like we were saying before, we have to be on guard because the left is not some thriving paradise for us.
Speaking of allies, for the perfect example.
Yeah.
Shitty liberals.
Yeah. So, to set the record straight, for anybody who, could be listening, I really don't think that there's such a thing as a transgender, because it's not fun to do this, and it's not fun to have to eventually talk to your parents about it. If
or
that's the decision, or your spouse, or like for me, I was in a relationship when I came out, and that was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had to have. Not a spouse, but
close enough.
The thing is that you have to tell everyone who you love and who have known you, and you've been keeping this part of yourself hidden for who knows how long, even if it's just something you recently discovered. This atmosphere is just not a fun one to start talking about it because it's trendy. And not to mention, there's nothing in trend currently. No Instagram filter. There's no no profile picture filter on Facebook. There's nothing that really captures what being trans is, what having to think about what your identity is, and who you're going to be, and what you are, and how people can love you. There's nothing trendy about that. And so I think, that's just my feelings about the possibility of a transgender. It just doesn't exist to me.
Well, and I do understand, like, the people who say, oh, it's a mental disorder. Because it was classified as a mental disorder, and I'm asexual, which was also classified as a mental disorder. Even I think it was 9 years ago, because it was right after my son was born, and I looked it up, and it was in the DSM whatever. I think that thing, DSMB, whatever. Anyway, so I mean, I understand that thought, but at the same time, it's not there anymore, and like we're always discovering new things about different diseases or different like disorders, and so I think we've discovered as we've gone along that being gay, being bi, being trans is not a disorder. It's just how someone is born, and I know there are studies now like that prove that Gender Revolutions with Katie Couric is a really good transgender one to watch because it has so much science. It's awesome. But it's just so frustrating that it was classified as a disorder. I know that's one reason I didn't come out a lot sooner is because when I was a teenager and trying to figure out like what this all meant, the only thing I could find was gender identity disorder. And I was like, well, I'm not going to tell people I have that. That sounds terrible. So I didn't come out for a long time. And I mean, it's better now, but we still have a lot of room to improve.
I think that's something that they use to their advantage. You know, it's like I think it's like they don't believe. Sorry, I'm trying to put my thought together. They're not. Like it's motivated by their transphobia rather than their transphobia being motivated by their poor knowledge of the mental health history, and it's so frustrating and being a victim of it because it's like it just feels doubly manipulative.
Yeah,
you know.
Mm-hmm. Like how do you combat that? I mean, you think I'm crazy. It was in the dictionary like 5 years ago that I am crazy. But I'm not. And how do you fight that?
Well, and it's a deliberate misunderstanding of what was in the actual DSM. You know.
You just want to tell them that depression is an illness. Loving someone is not.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's
that was
the
so
thing.
good.
Is depression used to also be treated as something that was this big, huge, serious, institutionalized thing, and we've more so come to accept that it's just a reality that people have. And so it's the same thing. We're still treating being transgender, being gay as this big, huge, serious, giant monster in the room that needs serious amounts of help and correction to get better when it's just another biology thing in the same way that anything else would be. Not to say that it's a disorder. I don't mean it like that. I just...
When this person commented on my selfie and was like, transgender is a mental disorder, I was like, dude, I have mental disorders, and transgender is not one of them.
I feel like for a lot of us sitting here, we come from religious backgrounds that also need to be discussed. The whole the whole love the sinner, hate the sin thing. That's got to stop.
Yep.
That's got to stop. And the whole if you prayed a little harder, it would go away.
Pray the gay away.
It would go away.
Well, I think something... Oh, sorry. Is Ari okay?
Yeah, go.
Okay, so I think something to say, like, to put that into your words, is like, you don't always have to give your opinion on my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, Jesus Christ
is your Lord and Savior.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes. But like, I am not always asking for your opinion. If you ask me how my day is going, and I'm like, hey, like, I've had this terrible thing happen to me, and like, you know, and or whatever, you don't always need to tell me how you view it through your religious eyes.
You sinned and didn't pray enough.
Right. And or you don't have to tell me that you don't believe that me being trans is real.
Yes, it's like
you don't have to tell me that. You can just sit there and listen to someone and be loving and accepting without always having to give your opinion on something.
Well,
I don't have to agree with you, but I can sit by you and I can tell you that I love you no matter what.
Yeah.
And like, that's the important thing. So you don't always have to give your opinion.
And
so
it's not always
agree.
going to get better. All of you freaking fucking allies that say, oh, it's going to be okay. Allies are everywhere. Okay, you know what? No, they're not. That's the fucking point. Mormons building bridges, and I will call you out because no, allies aren't everywhere. Look in our pews. Look in our states. Look in our wards. Look in our families.
Look in our
they
bishoprics.
are not there.
Because they choose not to be.
Because they choose not to be there, and they have all of their religious and moral whatever reasons to be not there, or to say, I really understand that you want to get married, but is it really that important to be married? Why can't you just have a civil partnership?
Yeah.
It's the same kind
Sex
of bullshit.
isn't everything in your relationship. Sex isn't everything, so maybe you should just overlook the sex part and get over it.
Well, and the thing that really kills me is, like, guys, if you want to identify me for the 20 minutes I'm going to spend in bed with somebody, it is so much more than somebody that I want to have sex with. It's somebody I identify with on so many other levels. It's not about sex. And the allies aren't there for us right now. So it drives me insane when people are going to be like, oh, it's going to be okay. Look at the bright side of things. And it's like, yo, you do not know what our lives have looked like. You don't know.
Not
that
this
it
last
has
year,
not,
for sure.
And that it has not been better for 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me one time in my life, ally 1 and ally 2, tell me where things have actually gotten better, and I just don't think you're going to be able to find it.
Well, only a place where I can be safe.
Yeah. And here's the thing, don't people think that I have been trying for 30 years to not be transgender and ace? I may have spent my whole childhood praying to wake up a boy, but I also spent most of my childhood praying that would go away and I could be a normal person. People just think that you don't try. And I have tried so hard to be cisgender and heterosexual, and it didn't work. I've been trying for my whole life. I married my husband 10 years ago and have been trying to be a real girl and not asexual, and it doesn't work. And I have tried, and I have prayed, and I have worked with people, and it's not going away. So I don't understand the mindset that you just need to pray it and it will or the whole thing that this is a test that the Lord has given you and you have to learn to get through it. It's like, I am trying to get through it. I tried one way, it didn't work. Let me try a new way without judging me.
Well, let's be clear, that's not allyship.
Yeah.
That's not what allyship looks like. That's not helping us. That's being someone that's condemning. I posted a Facebook status about this a week ago, and I literally had someone write me an email that probably took 15 minutes to read, and they started at the top, first thing they said in their email, first sentence. I want you to know that I love you, and I'll make sure that you're always accepted. But I also need to make it very, very clear that the Lord does not accept this sin, and neither can I. And then the rest of the email was this huge email about how loving and accepting and kind and generous they are.
Did you read the whole thing? Or just
oh my gosh. And the best part was I responded back and I said, hey, I really appreciate the email. Thanks for reaching out. I just want to make one thing clear. I love the sinner, hate the sin is bull, and it's wrong, and it's not being loving. And then I got this huge email about how I'm being a jerk, and why can't I be more accepting of them if I want them to be accepting of me? And it was a good joke, but this happens all the time. And those people legitimately think they're being allies and they're helping their community, and
They're not.
They're not.
May I actually interject something? I find it ironic when people have to self-promote how good they are. If you are that good, people will be telling you, they will be praising you for the good you're doing.
Look how awesome I am.
And if you have to tell people, it's like, oh well, I am a loving, giving person. I love you. I care about you. And as soon as you have to start reminding them of that, you may not be doing as well as you think.
You lose it. Yeah.
We got a text from my wife and I got a text from her grandma out of nowhere saying, "We love and accept you." Now I'm not out to my wife's extended family. Like, not technically, but my Facebook is public, and I am very open about my beliefs on my Facebook, so it was very strange. And so we texted back that we love and accept her as well, and she didn't like that, because it's not a normal thing to say to someone. I don't go around saying to people randomly, "Dear Lynn, I just need you to know that I accept you." Why? Why am I saying that to her? It's this idea that I am the arbiter of acceptance, and I can grant that upon you.
And there's something about you that's not acceptable.
Yes, I need to let you know.
But I'll let you know that I'm the exception who's going to accept you anyways.
Yeah.
Even if everybody else is okay with it. I'm special.
I had this conversation with my parents last night. Literally.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I have a gay married older brother.
who's married to a man, and they're very happy. And my parents were telling me, because we were having this long discussion, but anyway, they were telling me how, yeah, we welcome you, and we welcome, like, your brother and his husband into our home, and we love you guys and stuff, but we just, you know, basically, my dad, like, kind of turned it around and was like, but he didn't direct it at us, but he was talking about the Pride Parade that I told him that I had gone to, and he's like, yeah, but we just don't think that ridiculous celebration of, like, you know, why do they need to do that? Like, why is that a thing? And
why
it's
do you
just
even
like
have pride?
and
We don't have straight pride.
exactly, yeah. He's like, we don't, you know, people don't go around parading their heterosexuality and like all of this stuff like that.
61 days out of the year. I like
Yeah, and he was just saying all these things to just that like kind of negated everything that he said before. It's like, I love you in spite of who you are.
Yeah.
And it's like, you
that's
act
the
like you
worst.
love me, you act like you care about me, but you don't.
Yeah.
You don't see that, because every time I try to point it out, you're just so defensive. And my dad, he puts up a wall with his words. Like, he's just so vague and stuff when he, like, tries to argue back and stuff, and so he just talks and talks and talks until I'm like, okay, I give up, whatever, talk later.
My husband doesn't talk, but he puts up that wall, and it's that same sort of thing. Like, I love you, except for that part. And it's, for me, it's like, that's always been there. I'm still the same person. I'm not transitioning. Like, I'm the same person. I just talk more about my feelings and who I am. Like, I'm more honest now than I was 3 years ago. And it doesn't work. They just put up that wall and ignore you and hope it goes away, and it's not going away.
Well, and I think that that's another thing that people don't think about in the, like, as being an ally for trans people, is that you need to respect that it's not like that the other person is dead or something. Because I always get that analogy that, like, especially as I recently came out to my mom and it didn't go great, but like the daughter that she had, that she like thinks in her head of as dead,
Right.
Yes.
and they have to mourn for the lost child. And I'm like, you know what? Like, that's still me.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't.
I'm not dead.
I wasn't
Still here.
I'm not a different kid than who I was when I was growing up, and who I've always been, and who I continue to be, and the same person that I still am. Like, I'm not. I'm telling you because I'm trying not to die, not the other way around.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you as proof that I have died. I'm telling you because I can't live anymore. And like, well, yeah.
That's debatable.
That's a fine line.
Yeah.
But like, if this is me being my truth, if this is me saying my truth, then shouldn't you be proud, and shouldn't you be happy that the child that you raised is willing to continue to grow and become the person that were always supposed to become? If you believe in this God that makes no mistakes, then why would you believe that we are a mistake?
Exactly. Sorry.
And I mean, the thing is that regardless of the religious background that people from the LGBTQ community come from, the thing is that if they grew up in that religious background, you don't need to explain to them your religion.
Right.
They know.
Yeah.
They're the ones who have to live with that.
Yeah.
They're the ones who had to first tell themselves, before anybody else got to tell them, how wrong they thought they were. They had to be the ones to look in the mirror and say, hey, despite how you feel me, have you ever considered that maybe you're all wrong? And how many days you had to think about that? How many times you sat in the pews and couldn't listen to what was being said? You could only think about, maybe this was all just a huge cosmic joke. And maybe, maybe you just hadn't really tried hard enough. And, we don't need to have that explained to us. We know already. And then the best part about it, I think, is that either we let go of the stuff that really hurts us, or somehow we learn to live with it. And that is not the end of our world, and that's not the end of our religion or our faith. That's the beginning of a new life, in which I'm pretty sure most religions are about anyway.
Yeah.
You know, coming out of the darkness into some sort of new sense of, you know, spiritual awareness and self and acceptance and connection with God. Like, if you think that I've come this far without having a connection to God and having this, you know, religion and everything, I don't know what you think I believe in. I don't know if you think I've never been a member of any kind of church or something like that. You don't need to explain it to us. we're very aware. And if we don't want to be a part of the religion, then I think that's something to respect as well.
Yeah.
Because
Some of us have felt very abandoned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Can I just go back to the mourning part?
Yeah.
Just real quick. My son is autistic, and when he was diagnosed, it was sort of a mourning for the child that I thought I was going to have, but it was never, I hate this part of him, I wish it was gone. I mean, yes, he drives me crazy, and yes, there are things that he does that I'm like, you really need to stop that or I'm gonna die. But there's nothing that I would change about him. He is who he is, and he's an
trying to
awesome
come
kid.
in right now, too.
And he's trying to come in and say hi. Oh, look, here he is.
I'm just looking for the break.
Here. Have some caffeine, enjoy.
Yes! Yay!
I'm an excellent parent, I just want everyone to know. Yeah, so I did have to mourn for a little while, but it was never that I was mourning who he was. I was just mourning that the possibilities that I saw for him had changed. And they didn't become worse, they didn't become bad, they were just different. And that's not a bad thing. So, I mean, I sort of equate when I found out Toby was autistic to when I told my mom I was transgender. And it didn't change anything, it just sort of changed the possibilities of what my life would. Changed the possibilities of what my life would look like. And it's weird and unfair, honestly, that she can't see that I'm still the same person, everything's fine, opportunities for my life are still there, they're just different. And that's not a bad thing. And you don't have to mourn that you're losing a daughter and gaining a son, right? You just accept who I am and appreciate that I'm still here and that I'm still fighting to be here.
Be happy
That
that
was
I'm
all
happy.
over the place. Yes, be happy that I'm happy and not tell me to get over it anymore.
When I first called my parents and told them that I was trans,
You called them and told them?
yeah, well, I was hours away.
Oh my
I lived hours away,
How did
so I know. Well,
I did it through email.
I did too. I know. I said I was coerced. Oh yeah.
Still in the closet for my family.
He was like, we're reprimanding him, and we're all like, ballsy. Like,
Yeah.
hey.
Well, on the phone, like I'd have been like, "Hi, mom, I'm transgender. Bye."
well, I called them and I told them that I had something I wanted to share with them because they were important to me and because it was important to me, and I wanted them to be in my life and that there were going to be some changes, but that if they couldn't treat me with respect, that I was prepared to live a life without them, but that I wanted them in my life again. Like, that's why I was sharing it with them. And I think that more people could consider someone you love coming out to you as an opportunity to know that person better.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of goes back to like how a lot of cisgender parents will mourn their loss or whatever. They
mourn their loss, but do they celebrate? They gained another a kid that's
right.
more honest.
And I think the irony is that during those moments that my parents were insistent that they had lost a part of me, I was inescapably distanced from them. Mm-hmm. And in that way, they were losing me. That was just my experience. But in those moments, I wished that they could see how the role that they were playing in the loss that they were experiencing.
One of the ways that I think we experience that, both as trans and then, with different sexualities and stuff like that, is when people call it struggling. Because yes, there is a struggle in a lot of ways. There's all different kinds, but like, yeah, exactly.
It's
And
not
so-
our struggle. You're the one who's making our struggle.
Because when I realized who I was, I was just barely 20, and I realized that I was bisexual and transgender. I felt so happy and so light. Like, oh my gosh, I understand so much about my life now.
Figured out a huge deal.
Yeah, seriously. And like, it was so happy and exciting to me. But then, like, when people call who I am and who I love struggling, that is one way that they distance themselves from me.
It's a microaggression too.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I hate that word. Whenever anybody says like, oh, so-and-so's struggling with same-gender attraction, or so-and-so's struggling with their gender identity, and I'm just like, they're probably struggling because of you, honestly.
I'm struggling not to kick you in the face.
And it's just
same.
I'm about
Right?
to throw some rainbow cupcakes.
That's right.
Yeah, poison, rainbow
Hold
cupcakes.
still, let me get them.
So yeah, so that's just, I think that's one of the ways, kind of like what Jack was saying, is that like, I'm not the one moving away from you.
Yeah.
You're the one moving away from me with how you act around me and with what language you use and things like that.
I'm trying to be closer to you, and you are the one distancing us.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to go back to something that Jude said, but when they found out or realized their identity and how excited that they felt, and I know that I felt the same way. Like, finding out that transgender was a real thing, I just about fell off my chair. Like, I did not know, seriously, honestly, because I was a sheltered Mormon child, that you could be a female to male transgender person. So when I found this out and found out that there were other people like me, I just about died. Like, I was so excited. And I remember, like, running around and being like, husband, I have a thing to tell you. It's so awesome. And his response was less than excited. And I was like, oh, that's sad. And then I told other people, and it was, again, a huge letdown. And for me, it was like, but this is who I am. Like, I know who I am now. I'm not just a weirdo. Like, I am weird, but that's not why. So it was really frustrating for people to respond. And I didn't necessarily expect them to respond, like, with excitement or anything, but just to be positive about it and not to be like, have you been to church lately? Or maybe you should go to the temple and talk about it.
Have you been reading your scriptures?
Have you been praying? You need to talk.
Have you done anything immoral?
I haven't ever come across a story or a person who was like, I was trans, and then I read the Bible.
And now I'm going to try it. I will experiment with this. I'm going to be cured by the Holy Writ. I'm so excited.
I listened to my pastor, and suddenly the transgender went away.
It disappeared. It turned it off.
I sung a few hymns, and suddenly I just realized I was him gender. And
that's right. I'm a boy again! Hooray! Or I guess in my case, I'm a girl again. Sorry, that's all mixed up in my head too.
With talking about how there's this sense of I guess there's just something where there's a place where those of us in the community and others who are not in the community or don't consider themselves allies, there's a point where they don't see eye to eye. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's also this I think there's, because of that point and also because of events that happen, like the Pulse shooting and everything like that, I don't think anyone's dumb enough to think that nobody is not on defense. But at the same time, if people would not look at pride or places, safe places for LGBTQ people, if people stopped and just said, wait, before I look at it and I think about what I don't like about it, but if I look at the possibility that there's something I don't know about it, or maybe is there someone in my life who I haven't cut out or pushed away? Is there someone who I can talk to that is willing to talk to me? And how can I approach that without, alarming anyone, because and maybe I've thought about, maybe there are people who I've seen people, good people. I mean, they're not as cool anymore when they say things like, "Oh, I'm confused." That people like me are confused, or and stuff like that. But they're good people most of the time, and they don't know, and they don't have anyone to tell. But at the same time, I think they're afraid too, that they're about to step into maybe a bee's hive, and maybe they're, by asking, that there's going to be some sort of whiplash or something that's going to occur. And at the same time, I think that's kind of funny, because what we were saying earlier, we're pretty focused on affirming people here, and then also justifying that we're not doing something we think is wrong. We're doing something we think is right, and we're also not looking for approval most of the time, because at a certain point you just realize you can't live for anyone else. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying is, I think that everyone is, because of things that happen like Pulse, and then because of so much discussion, which is usually not good discussion on the internet, and things like that, it's hard when they're nervous, or they're afraid too. They don't know what they're going to get when they talk to us and things like that. And I'm not saying that we should give them the benefit of the doubt if they are trying to say something that's rude or mean. But I think it's important for us to realize too that there are people who, they don't see themselves as the shooters at Pulse, but they also don't see themselves as part of the community. And they don't know how to approach this whole situation. That makes them nervous too, and then they get afraid when perhaps what they think we're saying is that they are the people who are the shooters, and things like that. I don't know. That's just something that's been on my mind too. Is that how can I also live my? But then again, that's another burden on me. How can I live my life to make sure that people feel okay about, realizing that what I say is not, absolutely crazy. But in going back to making places safer and stuff like that, even in religious backgrounds and stuff like that, I think, like I was saying, it starts with first trust. You gotta establish that communication. I know that's really helped with me and my parents, is that there was hurtful things said in the beginning, I think on both sides, and then as time has gone on, I've had to unfortunately swallow some unpleasant things, but anything to establish the trust. At least for me, I'm not saying that's for everyone, but for me, establishing trust has changed the way that my parents and I communicate. And that communication now is valuable to me, because they're not perfect, and neither am I, but now they are not afraid of asking me. They're not afraid of looking into what life is through my eyes. I was really impressed when my dad actually did ask me about bathrooms, and why was it that why is it that trans people can't just have their own bathroom, sort of thing. What's so bad about that? And I got to explain to him about the complexities of being trans in the first place. But then when people start trying to put you in a trans bathroom or something like that.
Segregation.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, then you're marking yourself, and if you walk out and somebody shoots you because you're in the trans bathroom.
But that's something my dad never would have thought of. Mm-hmm. He never would have thought to ask me. And he would have always been too nervous to ask me. So, it starts with the trust and the communication, I think. Even in religious backgrounds. In people coming from religious backgrounds, I being particularly, spiritual and religious, I've had the opportunity now to talk to my parents about that and what being trans and being Mormon is like, what and how I see it, how it makes sense to me, and I really do feel like it makes sense.
This has been I Like to Look for Rainbows. Join us again next time.
All the things that I love might be over, and I'm stuck here, both hands full of closure. But I'm not sorry for me. I know that it's not my fault, not my